This is Real Life with Deb Waterbury, a real show for real people with real issues. And now, here's your host, Dr. Deb Waterbury.
Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I'm here again with my friend Brenda Woody.
Hello.
Brenda was with me to start out this series, and Brenda's here with me to end this series because it's the parenting series. And honestly, Brenda, as a parent and as an educator, is just one of the most expert, amazing women I know. So it was only appropriate that you would parenthesis this.
Oh.
So today, in our last show here on the parenting series, we're going to talk about something that is what some of you may not have to think about yet, but those of us who are mine and Brenda's age are now thinking about, Brenda in the midst of, and me realizing it's right around the corner, and that's caring for our aging parents. And in a time period where the elderly are often shoved off into the side, and
especially in our culture.
In our culture, yes, in the American culture in particular, because it's not that way in Africa. It's not that way in many of the countries that I travel to, but here in America, it has become put them in a place somewhere, not that putting them in a nursing home or in an care, those things
assisted living.
Those are perfectly acceptable. I've told my boys that, that's what I would like to do. I would like for them to put me there. I don't want to be put in a home, but I would like to be put in assisted care or something that I don't feel like I'm a burden to them.
Right.
I don't know what they'll do, but it really depends on the, state
situation
of the person. Yes. But it's been in our culture a tendency to just shove the elderly aside because they become inconvenient and maybe just a little bit more of a problem, which is fully anti-biblical.
It sure is.
That is a contra-biblical statement or belief system that it'd be the same as saying, well, I don't want to care for my baby because he's a problem. Because, it's the same, as you get older, you really do cycle back into needing to be taken care of. And this after you've given so much of your life.
Yeah.
Caring for a baby is they didn't give you jack. That baby didn't give you anything and you still want to care for it.
Right.
But then here's your elderly parent or grandparent who's given you everything and then you don't want to care for them. Or people don't. It's, I think that we have, and I think there has been a change in that trend. Don't you feel like there's a little bit of a shift where people are more understanding and then respecting and understanding that there is so much value to taking care of your parents as they age, and that is God honoring. I mean, goodness gracious, it's absolutely not God honoring to not do that, but it is God honoring to honor your parents.
And it's one of the greatest privileges, I believe, that God allows us in the seasons of life. It's one of the greatest privileges that He affords us to be able to take care, and not just take care, but to honor and stay invested in the lives of our aging parents, grandparents.
And that's not to say that it's not challenging. For many who are in the situation of caring for aging parents who are ill, or Alzheimer's, or just physically ill, whatever, there comes with those things very big challenges.
Right.
But that doesn't alleviate or even eliminate the responsibility and the joy of partaking in that care. So Brenda has her father is, how old is your father?
He is 96 years young.
He's amazing. Her father is amazing. Love him to pieces. Well, but you took your father in, and he now lives with y'all as of how long ago?
He's been with us in our home here in Tucson. I think it's going on 5 years now. My mom passed away in 2011, and he stayed there in Illinois. We still have his house back there, actually. But he stayed there for a few years, and it was actually his decision. He's always had an open invitation. He and Mom used to come and stay a month or more in the winter months, but we were saying, Daddy, if you want to come out and be with us, we would love that. And I never really thought he would be comfortable doing it, but he kind of surprised us and said, yeah, I think I would like that. And so it's been, for us, and I know it's not always this way for everybody, but for us, it's just been the most perfect, smooth transition because he is healthy.
Yes.
He's active, he's independent, He drives to the gym every morning.
I love that.
And does his workout. And he goes to the store. I leave a grocery list. He goes to the store. He gets groceries. If I've got an onion on the list, he peels it for me. So,
well, I remember we had our girls' night over at your house one time, and he was supposed to shred the chicken and for the soup, but the dogs got most of the chicken, as I recall.
Yeah, that's our biggest struggle. He doesn't always follow the rules with the dogs. He sometimes gives them some snacks that he's not supposed to. But.
Right. But having him there, even as wonderful as your dad is, it was still an adjustment.
It changes the dynamic.
Yes,
it does.
It certainly does. But and as I was Brenda was telling me before we started taping the show that she feels like she shouldn't be the one talking about this because it was so easy for her. Her father is healthy and he's wonderful, and it was an easy transition. Right. And that I know what I told her, and what I believe is it doesn't disqualify her to speak to this, as it wouldn't disqualify any of us, when the heart is geared toward honoring your father, which is what caused you to allow him to come out here in the first place. I think that we don't deal necessarily in a topic like this with what you do. It's with what you're willing to do and what you have a heart bent to do.
Well, I got to watch my mom and dad take care of my grandma and grandpa. And my grandma lived to be almost 100.
Wow.
And so I just watched, and that was a difficult situation because she didn't have her faculties. She did have dementia. And it was not the smooth transition that we've had with my dad, but I watched how honoring they were and how they prioritized my grandma over everything else. Both of them had really busy lives, but nothing came before grandma. She didn't live with them, but just finding care for her that was, good care was not easy. And so I watched them love her and take incredible care of her for many, many years.
Right.
And I just thought, wow.
And that can look so different depending on the situation. For like my parents, I watched my parents care for my grandparents as well, but my parents' were so staunch in, I'm not leaving my home. Oh. This is my house, I'm not leaving my house, so my parents honored that, but would always make sure they visited them continually, made sure they had everything they needed. I know my parents are going to be the same way. Yeah. Mama, as a matter of fact, when I was home not long ago, made sure to tell me, you do know I will not leave this house. And so I get that. I understand that about my mom and about my dad as well. So it's going to be a matter of moving in how we can care for them in that. Now, what I want to address, because I think that we can think of so many horror stories, and many of us know horror stories. And we have a friend who's dealing with an aging woman right now, our friend Chev, and it's not her, she's not even related to her. But her children have been so terrible and have taken such advantage of her that she's been left almost penniless. Right. We know so many of these stories where children have not taken care of their parents or have literally seen them as a liability, so therefore they shun them or put them in positions where they're not taken care of. Right. So what I want to talk about is, why is it so important that we take care of our parents? Because caring for them can look different depending on the parent. Yeah. But why is it important that you and I understand that moving within the realm of caring for our parents at whatever age they are is so necessary in God's world, in God's eyes? Why is that so necessary?
He made it pretty clear.
He did. It wasn't like he said, honor your father and mother
if you feel
as
like
long as they're healthy.
Or as long as you agree with them, or as long as they're tolerable or likable. But there's that scripture, do you have it written here?
I don't know.
Yes, in Exodus, honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land. So there's a lot of promises attached to honoring our parents.
Yes, there are. And God, again, and you said it so well, he didn't give a contingency there. Yeah. Because again, I deal with I have some young people that I'm kind of counseling right now, and they're younger, so they're not having to take care of their parents, but that will come, and their parents are not the nicest, best people on the planet. So understanding that honoring your parents doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it does mean you have to honor them as your parents. And then as your parents move into being older, just because they weren't nice to you or the best parent in the world doesn't then eliminate your responsibility in the eyes of the Lord to care for them.
Right.
It's God honoring to do so.
Right. You know, I think for some people, they dread the day that, say, for instance, their parents lose their ability to drive safely. Or like you were saying, they dread the day that the doctor says, you know, it's not safe for your mom to be in the home alone anymore. We really need to look at some other options. I think personally, what I've had the blessing and benefit of being able to do with my daddy is we've talked about this stuff over the years before any of it ever happened.
That's good.
So we've had dialogue about it. We've talked about, and he's he doesn't want to be a burden. So he said, you know, do this or do that, or if I ever, you know, am not driving safely, you need to know. I don't want to be like your grandma who we had to hide the car keys from her. So just the fact that we've taken opportunities to talk about some of those really tough things before they've happened. For those who have the opportunity to do that, it's never too soon to start talking about those years.
Yes, absolutely.
You can, not that you need to put it in writing, and of course, you know, things can always change. They can forget that they said, take my car keys.
Exactly.
But
conveniently.
I feel a sense of peace that we've had some of those hard conversations.
Yes. I think that's wise, and it's very responsible to take that opportunity when you can. It's not comfortable.
No.
And your parents maybe don't want to talk about that necessarily, but it's just, you know, broaching the subject. Just with me, my parents are in their 80s. My mom is very healthy. She might not be, you know, sometimes she forgets things, but as far as physically, she's very healthy. So when I see her, we will broach that subject, and she always shuts me down really fast. Not leaving this house. So I understand her desires. What I'm going to have to do in the next time I see her is talk about, well, Mama, what happens if you just physically need to not be here? What would you like to happen then? Because Jeff has already said she's welcome to come stay here. My daddy's welcome to come stay here. I don't know that they want to move from Tennessee to here. So what do we do with that? Yeah. It's so much easier to just say, well, you know, I can put them in a home because then they can be better taken care of. And that may be the best thing to do, depending on their state and your situation. But doing so with a heart that is bent toward honoring them and not with a heart that's bent toward your own convenience. That's going to be the difference. Because here's the deal. You will stand in front of God one day, and He will judge your actions, but He judges your actions as they are led by your heart. So your actions may look on the surface to make complete sense, and God will, and anybody else may go, wasn't she the sweetest thing in the world? God, however, says, and He says it over and over again, I see a man's heart.
That's right.
And so He will know why you did what you did. That's why I believe it's so important that we search our hearts now. To make sure that we are moving in a way that honors God in all of our relationships, including our aging parents or grandparents, whatever the case may be, and recognize that God will not judge what you do; He will judge why you do it.
The motives of your heart. That's right.
And so when I wanted to go into a series like this and end here. It's because this is the end for many of us when it comes to our parents, or it will be the end if we live long enough as us as parents, what our children will do. This is that whole cycle. And again, as they go closer to meeting their Maker, and as you go closer to meeting God, we're going to stand at the judgment seat. We all will at the white throne of judgment, and God will always judge the matters of your heart. So as Brenda, that's why I thought your qualifications had nothing to do with what you did. It's had to do with why you did it. That's what qualifies any of us who have aging parents to speak on that. It's what's driving you. And it was the love for your dad and wanting what was best for him, love for your mom and wanting what was best for them. That's what drives. And if that's truly what's driving you, then your decision will be driven by the Lord as well. Right. And they don't look the same. It's kind of like raising your kids. It doesn't look the same, given it just depends on who your parents are. Yeah. And we have lots and lots of examples within our own lives of what that might look like. But I want to just encourage you, those of you who are in this season, and those of you who aren't, you will be eventually, if the Lord wills that your parents live long enough where you're to take care of them. Do what, Brenda talked about talking to your parents before it happens. Well, you need to talk to God before you have to come to that decision.
That's right. It's
kind of like anything else in your life. You can't expect to know the will of a God you don't know. You can't, and I've been speaking. A couple months ago, I did the series on finding intimacy with God, and the reason why I did that series was because if we cannot move toward the character of a God and trust Him if you don't know that God.
That's right.
And the only way you can know Him is to get to know Him, be intimate with Him. So it's the same when you're trying to come to a decision about something of this magnitude that you will be held responsible for in front of the Lord, because He is so clearly mandated within His word that we honor our parents, period. Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't give you any ifs, ands, or buts.
Right.
Honor your mother and father.
Right.
So because He's so clear about that, we're going to be held responsible for that. So before you get to that place is the best time to start seeking His will and His wisdom for what you do.
Very, very well said.
And before the time happens, it's before the time. It's like anything. You gotta know and seek Him before tragedy strikes. Yeah. So I want to encourage all of y'all, either whether you're in this season or you're heading toward this season, just start seeking God out. And you don't necessarily have to ask Him what to do. I would ask Him to mold your heart to be like His, so that when that time comes, you're speaking and moving and doing from a heart that's already akin to God's heart. That's right. And then you can't go wrong. If you do it with God's heart, you can't go wrong. Yeah. God bless y'all. I hope you've enjoyed this series on parenting. It's been some difficult stuff that we've talked about. Parenting is not easy. Like I've said, it starts getting easy, then you're doing it all wrong. So parenting is not easy, which is why we wanted to move through this entire series. We've done a couple of weeks on this, go back to debwaterbury.com, or you can go to my Deb Waterbury YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see all of these videos. Share them with other people, share them with your friends in terms of parenting. These things are things that we all have. And if you have comments, make sure you comment underneath. If you've got things to share with us, go to the YouTube thing and give us some comments. There are other people who need to hear from you too. So we welcome those at all times. God bless you again. We'll see you at our next series.
God bless.
Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Real Life with Deb Waterbury. I hope it's been a blessing to you as much as it was to me. If you want any of my books or information on articles or any of my speaking engagements, you can go to my website at debwaterbury.com. God bless you.